So the British and Irish Lions tour dates for 2021 have been officially endorsed. So everything, despite the global pandemic, seems to be going ahead according to plan, which is a good news story for now. Hopefully it's a good news story come this time next year. If you haven't seen the list of fixtures, we'll see if we can check it up here. They start with the Stormers. That's their first game in Cape Town on the 3rd of July. So the tour is essentially kicking off about a month later than what we're used to. We're used to seeing it start in June. First game is the Stormers, which is usually a pretty tough game. The Stormers in recent times have been an underperforming but strong team. People who don't watch Super Rugby in South Africa would probably know Jamie Roberts was there in the most recent season, which was called off. And yeah, they were doing okay. The next game is a few days later on July 7th against the South Africa Invitational team in Port Elizabeth. From that game, we move on to the Sharks 3 days later, which is in Durban. And they, again, who knows how they're going to be in a year, but up until this point have been the strongest of the South African teams as of the 2020 season. So that'll be a good test. It's probably good that game's not first based on current form, but as I said, it is still pretty early on. From then, on the 14th of July, it's South Africa A. And the last of the Super Rugby sides they face is the Bulls. That's on the 17th of July. So that's the warm-up games. And this is one of the big differences. I'll talk about the differences in the fixture list in a moment. But essentially, they got the Bulls, who haven't been the best, but they'll be a different side in a year's time because Jake White is now coaching them, and he is having a big clear out. So expect them to be a pretty tough challenge right before they take on the Springboks in 3 tests on the 24th, the 31st, and then the 7th of August. So you may notice there's only 8 games on this tour. Generally, it's been 10. I've looked through the previous tour to South Africa, then the following one to Australia, and then the following one to New Zealand. And those ones all took on a pretty similar format. They started end of May or start of June. The only one that's different, I guess, is the Aussies, in that they played, the British and Irish Lions played the Barbarians in Hong Kong before heading to Australia. The other 2 times in New Zealand and in South Africa the previous time in 2009. They just got straight to the destination country. And then it was, kind of warm-up game, if you want to call it that. Warm-up game, warm-up game, warm-up game, warm-up game. And then the final test, like the first test. So, yeah, they're missing a little bit of that. And generally, after the first test, there's been one game after the first test where the Dirt Trackers get one more crack to try and crack the test squad. And then there'll be the 2 final tests, but that game is missing. So compared to the other tours, you're 2 games shorter. Used to be 10, now it's 8. However, in terms of the preparation, if you're thinking, doesn't this give the Lions, because the Lions are already under incredible time pressure, doesn't this give them less time to get ready for the tour? Not really. Like in the previous 3 tours, 09, 13, and 17, it's 22 days from the first game the Lions play together to the first test. And that fact doesn't change with this new tour. It's only midweek games that are gotten rid of. So, again, the main guys who are affected here are the Dirt Trackers. So the midweek guys, the guys who aren't going to get into the test side. Those guys are going to have 2 less games to play, which is unfortunate, but because sometimes there's those guys who put their hands up in those games, but I guess it's also there are guys who get injured in those games as well. So, yeah, the overall prep time is the same. The fixtures list is just a little bit less congested, and that between that final warm-up game on the 17th of July, it's they've got a bit more time to prepare. So there's no midweek game between that Bulls game on the 17th to the first game on the 24th, the first test. So yeah, there's a full week for those guys to get ready for that test. I don't know. Do you guys think that's going to help, or do you think every little game these guys play together is useful? I'm inclined to believe everything is useful in terms of getting the analysis done, but the players can take a bit of a thrashing, especially if there's injuries and they have to put a guy in, to play a game 3 days after he's last played. It can happen. So, yeah, that's the kind of main takeaway. It's a pity the Lions aren't playing the Lions. They're playing 3 of the 4 South African Super Rugby franchises, the Bulls, the Stormers, and the Sharks. They're not playing the Lions. The Lions against the Lions would be a commentator's dream. So it is quite unfortunate they are not playing. But yeah, it's an interesting little fixtures list. Have a look at it. Goodness knows how things are going to look in a year, people. I mean, hopefully there's a vaccine and everyone's safe to travel. No quarantine times and we're kind of back to normal. But that would be pretty optimistic sitting here in, the 20th of July as I record this in 2020. It seems optimistic, but hopefully I'll watch this video back in a year's time and we'll be in the middle of the Lions tour and I'll getting ready for the first test and I'll be a happy chappy. We'll have full crowds and everything will go off without a hitch. But we'll see. As I said, it's 2 fewer games, but it's essentially the game before and after the first test, which would normally be a midweek game. Those are the 2 games we are missing. The overall prep time for the Lions is the same, 22 days. It's just you lose the 1 game pre-first test, and you lose 2 games overall in the tour, 2 of the midweek games. So yeah, should be an interesting one. There's going to be lots of speculation going forward as to who's going to make the squad, but again, it's a whole year's time, so lots will change. What do you guys reckon about this fixtures list? Do you think it's going to help the Lions in terms of having a bit more rest time, or do you think they really need every game they can to prep? You guys let me know your thoughts. Talk to you again soon. See you later.